All right, everybody, I've probably seen this motion picture more than any other motion picture in my life, with the exception of Jaws. I used to put the DVD of this in just to pass out to at night, just because I love this movie so much. Okay, 1972's The Legend of Boggy Creek. As always, to the trailer.
Here in this primitive river-bottom wilderness in southern Arkansas, along with deer, duck, crane, and beaver, lurks a creature that walks upright. Whether it is a man, a monster, or a myth, no one really knows. What we do know is the people around Fouke, Arkansas say they have seen such a creature nearly 250 times since 1954. And that this creature, whatever it is, emits one of the most terrifying sounds ever recorded. The Legend of Boggy Creek, rated G.
Okay, this movie was directed by Charles B. Pierce. Charles B. Pierce was like a jack of all trades. He was kind of a strange character. I mean, he was an art director, a set director, a writer, a producer, an actor. He did a bit of everything. He did this as far as being a director. He did The Town That Dreaded Sundown, which is another classic low-budget flick. He also did Boggy Creek, you know, The Legend Continues, which he starred in. And wasn't that he was that bad of an actor. It was just, it didn't have the magic of the first one. It was just like, why bother? But anyway, he also did a lot of writing and things like that. And one of the movies that he wrote for was Sudden Impact with Clint Eastwood, who he happened to be friends with. And he came up with a story, and he actually tagged the line, "Go ahead, make my day." So if there's anything past Boggy Creek to cement him in film history, it's working on Sudden Impact and giving us that line. Okay, this motion picture doesn't really have a cast. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. It's one of those motion pictures that was just made with all the local yokels that happened to be living in the area. Some of them were the actual people that claimed that these events took place, and some of them were just people that he recruited. He would go to the gas station and say, "Hey man, you want to be in a movie? It's going to be fun." And people would say, "Yeah, why not?" And they would go be part of the movie. Most of the crew was just high school students that he was getting for, like, you know, basically next to nothing wages. So this movie doesn't really have a cast as you would think of a cast. It was all just the real people in the real town making a movie. Actually, the closest thing to a cast, I guess you could say we got, is Vern Stierman, who actually is the narrator to this, and he actually went on to narrate The Town That Dreaded Sundown. So I guess that's it. I mean, where else? What do you say? Okay, the story of this motion picture is that there's a giant monster, basically a Bigfoot. I mean, let's just cut to the chase. And he lives in the swamps down by Fouke, Arkansas. And that's why he's known as the Fouke Monster. And this story is basically a telling of all the eyewitnesses' accounts of their interactions with this monster. This isn't really a movie. It's a kind of a docudrama. It's like they're dramatically acting out events that they're saying are real. It's like watching anything else that you would see on like Travel Channel or Discovery Channel or something like that, where they're reliving the night that the UFO came, or they're reliving the night that they seen their ghosts. But it's starring most of the same people and most of the original people from it, or sometimes even family members of, or just local residents portraying them. It's not really a motion picture like you would think, with a consistency, like a story all the way through. It's literally a documentary type thing. There's parts of the movie where it's you know, just a little boy. It starts out with just a little boy running through the fields and everything like that, and then it goes to instances where there's like teenage girls and they see the monster outside the window, and then there's another scene where these couples are living together and the monster tries to break in, and there's a lot of like people in cabins with the monster outside. There's one where a boy is hunting and the thing is trying to, or actually it's kind of surprises him. The kid like fires at it and then runs off. But there's all kinds of things like that in it that probably could have been told in any order. It wouldn't have made a damn bit of difference. It's just a docudrama. It doesn't really have a story like we would think of a story in a motion picture. There you go. This motion picture works just because it's plain and simply fun. There's parts of this motion picture that are really just large segments of nothing. It's just big chunks of like background scenery, you know, otters in the water and the swamps and trees and traffic and people doing normal run-of-the-mill type things. You see a guy working on his tractor, another guy cooking by his fire. I mean, there's not really that much going on except for 3 or 4 little segments thrown in where you see the Falk monster interact with the locals. But that's the thing that makes this motion picture, is the locals. When you're watching this, you really feel like you're watching something that you just have to be standing around in the middle of watching taking place. You really feel like you're just watching this documentary unfold before you, and you're kind of there. It's obvious when you look at these people that none of them are actors. It's one, because they can't act, but it's obvious these are just normal local people. You know what I mean? That just showed up and said, "Yeah, I'll tell my story." A lot of these people are just old-time country folk down in the middle of the swamplands. The young people, just normal young people. They're not actor young people. They're not that kind of stuff. That's what makes this movie so charming. You know that they're making this movie with the real people. In the beginning it says, you know, based on true story, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, you hear that 8,100 times and you're just like, who cares? I mean, I know, yeah, you're all saying that. Everything is like that, but it isn't. But when you throw in the real people, when you throw in the local residents, you start to say like, oh, this is kind of cool. You know what I mean? This is kind of like, it is kind of entertaining because did it really happen to them? This is them playing themselves mostly. And it's kind of fun just for that. The movie is highlighted with little areas of activity, spaced out over time of just background filler, beast stock, trees and woods and all that kind of stuff. But those little moments, they don't overshoot what they're trying to do. Those little moments, they don't try to become more where the monsters picking people up and throwing them through the trees. And you know, it's not that kind of a movie. It's not a horror movie. None of it is too dramatic. None of it is too traumatic. None of it is over the top. It's just a good, fun watch that for some reason is charming as all hell. And I can't tell you how many times I've watched it. I mean, like a lot. This motion picture was made for $100,000. I mean, it was made for $100,000, and it went on to gross $20 million, and then it went on to make a whole lot more at retrospect in things like video rentals and stuff like that, or TV licensing, whatever, what have you. The fun of this movie also is that it looks like it was literally, anybody could have made it. Anybody could have made it. Like today, you could just go get 4 friends, a cell phone, some free video editing software, maybe a gimbal to make stuff look smoother, a tripod for $12 at Walmart, and you're off to the races, and you could have made this motion picture. Back in the days, back in the 1972, and I grew up with this movie. I was only a few years old when this thing came out. When I'm watching this motion picture back then, I remember the Bigfoot craze of the time. I remember the Bigfoot mania that Bigfoot was everywhere. You had Bigfoot cartoons, you had Bigfoot on TV, you had the Bigfoot Wild Boy show, you had Bigfoot on the $6 Million Man. It was Bigfoot craze. And this was a version of that. It was the Falk monster, well, I wouldn't call it craze, but it kind of launched its own craze because it went on to be extremely successful for such a low budget movie. I'm telling you, you could make this movie. You could make this movie. There's no swearing. There's no drinking or drugs. There's no nudity. There's basically no violence. God knows there's no blood and no gore. I think it's got a G rating, for God's sakes. It's just very entertaining in its simplicity and its innocence, really. It's just crafted. And there's also a whole bunch of fun little vignette songs in this thing, you know, where you're like, oh, Crabtree, where you just... The heart of it, you feel like you're being part of that community. You feel like you're there with those people. The music reflects it, the scenery reflects it, their stories reflect it. Again, not over the top, not crazy. It's not super sensationalized. It's just a cute little documentary, basically, that you're watching for an hour and 20 minutes. They kind of get roped in and say, well, isn't that just sweet? All right, folks. Go out, check this movie out. I'm sure most of you have probably seen it already, but it's a fun little watch, a good little time, and if you gotta love it. It's one of those movies you gotta love it. It's very heartfelt and entertaining, and you walk away going, oh, wasn't that cute? Bigfoot!